For over the past couple of years, I've been lying about a very specific piece of evidence in order to conduct my own and very small social experiment. On Halloween of 2017, I went and investigated a normal school in the heart of Denver, Colorado, and if I'm honest, I didn't really catch much. But in a moment of sporadic boredom, I decided to do the thing that most TV ghost hunters would do. I'd fake evidence. But it wasn't until I came home later that night that I would realize the potential of this fake evidence. At my fingertips was an opportunity to present something as real while I could study the reactions and see what exactly it would take for someone to believe in something so unbelievable. Given that I don't investigate that much anymore, I figured that I'd show my findings and give my best answers on the subject on if ghosts were real or if it was all Hollywood. So, before we get too into it, yes, I acknowledge, I lied. I'm sorry. But, to be fair, it was such an interesting opportunity to delve into the psychology and to witness people believing in something that wasn't real, seeing how far they would push themselves to see what was real to them. It became too interesting to turn down. So without further ado, let me provide you the context of how this came to be. The night that I walked into Ashley Elementary School, I had no intention on faking anything. Though I had done it in the past, I had developed a bit of a reputation as an honest ghost hunter, and I wanted to stay true to that as I was gaining a bit of an audience. So, I went and did a solo investigation, mostly because I hadn't uploaded anything to this channel in a long time, and investigations seemed to perform the best. My aunt was a facility manager for Ashley Elementary School and invited me to come check out and see what I could find. If I'm being 100% honest, most of the evidence that was caught can't necessarily be concluded as paranormal, as for the first half of the night, there was an event going on in the gym. So, for the first 2 hours, anything that could be thought of as paranormal, as well as anything that actually was paranormal, will forever have the asterisk next to it that there was a lot of other people in the building at that time. The building wasn't 100% vacated until I went to the second floor, and with the mixture of psyching myself out and nothing really interesting actually happening on the second floor, I decided to conclude my investigation after only 2.5 hours. To put that in perspective, most overnight professional ghost hunts last up to 6 hours, and even my investigations at 7900 lasted at a minimum of 4 hours. As I walked the building, I can't deny that some interesting things did happen and that I did have a feeling of fear throughout the whole night. However, when I would go ghost hunting anywhere, I hate to admit that I was always afraid. To put it in a metaphor, I always felt like a Coke bottle with the Mentos in it, and with the cap on. In other words, the simplest and smallest things could set me off, and drive me to do my best Zach Bagans impersonations.
Are you fucking kidding me? What did you just do?
Due to this, the fact that I was alone, it was easy for me to psych myself out, and to want to go home early, even though nothing of significance actually happened. So, I left, and had done so catching nothing legitimate, other than, of course, the thing that wasn't there. I spent weeks toying with the idea of if I should actually put it in the video, and inevitably I decided that I would. And the video performed great. It had a central point of focus on it, it was well edited, and it had a flow. But once it was made, I really thought about what I was going to do. If I was going to present this as something real, then how could I do it? And because I had no real contact with my audience, how would I be able to present this as real? I then did my best edits and did research on how to disprove a video. I learned how to fake by researching how things were proven fake. Video forensics taught me all about composition and about layers. I even went as far as setting my computer to the wrong date and time and turning the Wi-Fi off so that when I re-exported the raw footage, its encoding would match up with the time frame that I had presented in the video. I then showed it without acknowledging it so that it would seem that it wasn't a subject of debate, that what I was presenting was fact. I did my best to tie up loose ends and assure that when I was speaking, I was doing so with confidence to better translate the legitimacy of what I was presenting. The irony is that if you look at the footage that I show in all 3 videos, you can see that the shadow PNG that I used clearly overlaps the wall exactly the way I say it isn't. The other thing that made this so unbelievably easy to do is the fact that I was shooting at 30 frames per second. I could very easily make the shadow so fast that my stabilization wouldn't have mattered. The entire sequence is just simple keyframing over the course of 4 frames. As an experienced ghost hunter, I can validate that the energy of an environment can in fact affect how you react to simple things. Amidst that with the internal psychology, I could have also used the excuse that I was just calm at that moment, and that, unlike I previously stated, I hadn't psyched myself out with fear just yet. I'm not getting much better. Whoa! What the? No way. No fucking way. Hold up. I will have heard someone running. I did not just see that. Holy shit. Even though we delved into how it was fake, the thing that I found the most interesting was the response. Almost immediately in the comment section with the people who I knew personally, this video became a subject of debate. The responses ranged from "this is so cool" to "why are you obviously lying to your audience?" Within my own circle, it was actually more acknowledged as real than not. But how was I able to do this? Did people trust me that much, or was I just really that convincing? I mean, after all, I had shown my edit project in the video, and I had explained in detail why it was not fake. Yet it was. And it was done so with little effort. For months, 4 little frames became the most interesting thing in my life. And it wasn't because of the subject itself, but rather the reactions I received. I had my friends, family, my coworkers all believe that this was real. I even had another ghost hunting group ask to use my video with my explanation for a presentation about how ghosts are real. I said yes, as long as I was given the feedback of the people who were observing, and the results astounded me.
So I'm going to show you a clip from one of JT's investigations.
Whoa, what the? No way, no fucking way. Hold on.
And then in another video, he actually goes into explanation and explains the step-by-step process showing that this isn't him faking it. So with a lot of video, we have a big background in video production, we do a lot of filmmaking and video work. So he goes into his explanation showing how he did not embed this into the footage. He didn't take a second video, he didn't take an After Effects or Photoshop file and put that over the video. Because if you overlaid it, when you change all the properties in the video, the 2 different files are going to have completely different properties. So if you change the color on one, and it's all one video file, the different properties in the overlaid video are going to change totally different to everything else around it.
I had done such a convincing job at explaining how this was real, that even without being present, another ghost hunting group had convinced an audience that what I had made was real. Another example of this is this clip here from another investigation. This clip clearly shows what appears to be an apparition moving, but when observed further, you can see it's just a shadow. This is not a ghost or anything of that nature. This is just light creating a shadow on my head. But if I was presenting it in a way where it was real, this would be a very easy thing to make people believe in. Well, if you look at it more, there's more evidence to it. It kind of has a defined shape with what looks like an arch and a head. You can kind of see it is a white mist in color. It was captured on nothing more than a cell phone. I wasn't even able to edit something like that into my videos at the time. So, this is obviously real, right? I mean, it was caught in 2011, and I can even show you the source clip here. Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at it, it's transparent in nature, got movement to it, it has its own individual movement that is separate from anything I am doing or what the camera's doing. The flashlight on my camera is too faint to be apparating anything on those walls. And it was a very haunted house, and it has every single right to be real, but let me tell you why it is not. This amazing apparition is not a ghost. This is light matrixing, and the whole purpose of this video is to show you how easily you can be lied to when it comes to evidence. You see, I keep showing you this clip over and over again. I'm throwing in the red circles and the arrows. I'm showing you replays. I'm showing you advanced editing. But all that presentation is to help me lie to you. But why was it so easy to believe? The heart of the matter is that most people are terrified of death, and that most people believe that after we die, something of some sort happens. That fear usually fuels a predetermined decision on whether or not something paranormal is real. One of the main reasons it's so easy to convince people that your evidence is real is because they want to believe it. They want it proven to them that yes, there is something after this life. So even though your logic might have plot holes, they, as the observer, will go out of their way to fill those holes for you. To anyone who denies the paranormal, the issue that I found they have in regards to convincing them, 9 times out of 10, was pride. They refuse to acknowledge real evidence because most people don't like being wrong, to the point where a lot of the comments made about what you present is not only dismissive, but extremely negative and borderline aggressive. One of the things I noticed while showing this piece of evidence to non-believers is that once they had run out of questions, they would all do the same thing. They blew it off and were dismissive to all my answers. But the most mind-blowing thing I saw was that most of the time, they all wore looks of doubt and confusion, as if I had started to convince them that there was something to it. I mean, even though I had an answer for everything, it became an internal battle for them to reconvince themselves that they were right. After all of this, though, it was incredible because they were all right to not believe this. After all, it wasn't real. I had faked it. But still, a lot of them had their beliefs messed with. After taking in a bunch of data, I have found that upon first viewing, 60% already acknowledged this video as real without any form of explanation. But after explanation, another 23% believed in it, making it so that 83% of the total people saw this and acknowledged it as fact. The 17% of the holdouts all had one of two things happen. They stopped talking about it because they didn't want to be confrontational. This was easily observed through tone and body language, or they all had run out of things to ask and just refused any of my reasoning as they all thought it was not sensical. But this gets even more interesting as I found that the people who didn't believe this was real before the explanation, but did afterwards, they all already believed in ghosts. And to no surprise, the 17% of the holdouts were deniers to begin with. It's interesting to think that this video only got as far as rattling a few non-believers and didn't convert anyone. Though it is important that these percentages are not generalized to the population of everyone on Earth, but rather to the small control group that I was able to observe. This is the equivalent of if the Huffington Post took a poll from its community. Though they would get results, they wouldn't be valid because though the group is diverse, it's still a small percentage of the overall population. But out of all the people that I showed this to, why was it that 83% ended up convinced that this was real? Well, as previously stated to my observation, they all really wanted it to be real. They all were willing to listen and to be lied to, but done so in a way that it made sense to them. But as is the case that involves most people in regards to psychology and trust, the biggest factor in this research wasn't just the explanation, and it wasn't just the people who observed, but rather the source. The thing outside of predetermined opinions that mattered the most was the liar, also known as me. I needed to present myself in a way that was convincing and honest. I needed to study and look up how to lie to these people to get them to believe me. And honestly, one of the best ways I was able to convince people was to present the evidence in a controlled environment to see what questions were asked. I then took these questions that could be asked and made them part of my presentation. I did this so that it could appear that I had already thought of everything. I even told people exactly how I faked it, and did so sarcastically and with exaggeration that it almost made them feel dumb for even considering that I had faked this in that way. I covered my tracks by making the real way seem impossible, and by reading their minds and saying the answers to questions before they were even thought of. This is why in my video with the edit project shown, I went into such extensive length to cover all possible questions. I spoke with such certainty that I had a believable tone to most. And it worked. Most people who I had talked to about this walked away acknowledging that this was real, or that they didn't think it was necessarily faked. So now the question must be asked, why did I do this? You see, as a former video editor, I know a lot on how to manipulate footage, but I wanted to see how far it could go. Using a skill set that all subjects knew that I had, could they be convinced to believe in something that wasn't real? If they were not there to observe an event, could they believe in it enough to defend it? And to my surprise, a majority of the people did. I did such a thorough job that the truth had more plot holes than my presentation, or at least that's how I made it seem. I had an answer for everything. And all of this had me turn and question everything. The reason we believe what we see on TV is because of one of two reasons. We either trust the people on TV, or we want it to be real, so we perceive it as fact. People will always talk about ghost adventures and shows of that nature whenever the validity of the paranormal is brought up. And after this research, I have found that unless you are there, it is impossible to fully know if something is real or if it isn't. I had put such little effort into such a simple clip, yet I was able to convince a majority of people that what I was showing them was real. The experiment happened over the course of many years, and my conclusion on ghosts being real is this. After many years searching for the paranormal, it absolutely exists in this world. It can and will continue to fascinate the masses, but with advancements in technology, anything observed through a screen must be met with major skepticism. The reality of the paranormal, or rather the debate over its validity, has more or less shifted to how trusted the source is rather than how convincing the footage is. As I have shown through this experiment, a simple low-budget clip can appear to be honest, and with the right set of presentation and circumstances, just because the source is trusted doesn't mean it's valid. The want to believe in such a reality, where the paranormal is real, I found can sometimes fool people into believing in something that isn't there. The only true way to perceive your answer is to go and experience it for yourself, or to find that nothing was ever there to begin with. However, this doesn't mean it's all fake either. People will often reference scientific studies or make outright claims that science has no proof that ghosts exist, and even though a lot of people will roll their eyes at this, it still has to be acknowledged. There are controlled studies that come to this conclusion, but the hard thing to test about the paranormal is the fact that nothing can be controlled. It's sporadic in nature, and things cannot be repeated on command. It's random, the same way human interaction is. Through my many years as a paranormal investigator, I'm comfortable acknowledging the paranormal as something that is real, and through my own experiences, it's hard to convince me otherwise. But it is important to know that even convincing footage or audio can be easily manipulated, and with the right set of circumstances can appear to be more real than anything you've ever seen before. As I stated before, the only way to receive your answer is to go and experience it for yourself, or to find that nothing was ever there to begin with.